On August 15th, 1977, a radio telescope in Ohio picked up something that shouldn't exist. And we still don't know what it was. A volunteer astronomer named Jerry Ehman was scanning printouts that night. The Big Ear telescope had been listening to the cosmos for hours. Then his pen froze. One column of numbers, a sequence labeled 6 equage 5, was unlike anything in the baseline data. He scrawled, "Wow," in the margin. 50 years later, that exclamation remains the closest thing humanity has to documented proof of extraterrestrial transmission. Before we rank what the wow signal actually was, understand this. It violated every assumption we had about the universe. The signal was narrowband, meaning it concentrated its energy in a single frequency, exactly like a deliberately engineered broadcast. Natural phenomena don't do that. They scatter, they bleed. This one didn't. That detail matters because it narrows the field. We're not talking about pulsars or quasars. Those scatter their light across the spectrum like fireworks. We're talking about something that looked, acoustically, almost intentional. And that's where the countdown begins. Here are 5 explanations that have survived peer scrutiny. Number 5, a satellite. 5, the satellite hypothesis. In 1977, dozens of human-made satellites were already in orbit. Some transmitted on that exact frequency. Could the Big Ear have picked up a reflection bouncing off the antenna or the ground? Technically, yes, but the signal would have had to be impossibly strong and perfectly aligned. It's a math problem that doesn't quite solve, which brings us to something far more mundane. 4, the comet hypothesis. Every few years, a comet swings through our corner of space. In 1977, Comet Kohoutek was visible. Some scientists wondered, could comets emit narrowband radio signals? The answer, after study, was no. Comets are dirty snowballs, not broadcasters. They produce diffuse radiation, not focused beams. This explanation collapsed under scrutiny faster than the others. 3, Earth-based interference. This one haunted the investigation for decades. Radio towers, military installations, microwave relays. Earth is drowning in signals. Could the Big Ear have picked up something terrestrial that mimicked an extraterrestrial source? In 2020, astronomers found evidence of Earth-based radio interference in the area. It was a real lead, but it still didn't fully explain the signal's characteristics, which means we arrive at the 2 explanations that nobody wants to dismiss, but nobody can prove either. And that's the real story here, not what the wow signal was, but what it represents, the unbearable weight of ambiguity. We're looking at the only moment in human history when we might have heard something from beyond, and we're not sure. 2, natural cosmic phenomenon. Maybe the Big Ear detected something we haven't cataloged yet. Astrophysics is a young science. Pulsars weren't discovered until 1967. Fast radio bursts weren't confirmed until 2007. What if the wow signal was a natural event, rare, narrowband, but entirely explainable by physics we just didn't understand yet? It's possible. It's even probable, but it's also evasive. Because if it was natural, why haven't we seen it again? The big ear scanned that same patch of sky hundreds of times afterward. Nothing. No repeat. No pattern. That silence is the most unsettling part of the whole affair. The signal appeared once, was witnessed, and then vanished into history, which leaves us with number one, the explanation that haunts SETI researchers even now. It's not the most likely. It's not the most elegant, but it's the one we can't quite kill. And that's precisely why it matters. One, first contact. A deliberate signal from an intelligent civilization transmitted across the vast dark, aimed at Earth. It arrived exactly once because maybe it was a greeting, or a test, or the last transmission before something happened to them. Or we were never the intended audience, and we simply happened to be listening. The narrowband frequency, the impossibility of repetition, the perfect timing. Every piece of the puzzle fits. It fits so well, in fact, that we've spent 5 decades looking for the next one. SETI programs have scanned millions of frequencies. Newer telescopes have listened with better sensitivity, and they've heard nothing quite like the wow signal again, which is the point. This isn't a story about aliens. It's a story about the moment we realized we might never know for certain. Every explanation we've offered, satellite, comet, interference, natural phenomenon, or intelligence, is defensible. None is conclusive. And that ambiguity is the most honest thing science can offer. We stand at the edge of a question we can't quite answer, and maybe that's the real message. That the universe is vast enough to contain mysteries we'll never solve. The wow signal remains, 50 years later, the closest thing we have to documented contact. Not because it proves aliens exist, but because it proves that we're still listening, and that we're willing to sit with uncertainty rather than settle for false certainty. That's not a weakness. That's the only way science actually works. Subscribe for a new unsolved mystery every week, where the line between science and uncertainty gets drawn in real time. Subscribe for a new unsolved mystery every week, where the line between science and uncertainty gets drawn in real time.